You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. Drop it. You know you love it. We had like a USC graduate class in here in media last Friday, and I think they were so freaked out by the beginning of the power panel that they left. They kinda.
It's funny because I'm always tempted to do the same.
It looks so old, but it never gets old.
The power panel.
Yeah, the power panel.
Of course, it's from the current days. You know who made it? The guy still in the war room.
Michael Shore made that in the dead of night, still in the war room.
All right, Jimmy Dore, Cenk, Brett Erlich, Anna Kasparian for a very powerful power panel.
So I think you're going to say power packed.
There's a lot of different ways to go with that, Jimmy. Okay. So we got a lot of stories for you guys. Of course, North Korea, that meeting. I actually have a slightly different take than folks, but you know, we all have slightly different takes. That's why we're the Young Turks. I'm curious what the rest of the panel thinks. I've got Farmer Bro goes down. He's going to jail. We'll explain why. That's a little bit later in the show. But we start with drama at the White House. Yeah. Anna, what is it?
All right. Well, Gabriel Sherman at Vanity Fair is reporting that Donald Trump is considering firing pretty much everyone who works with him at the White House. So, look, the details of the story are fascinating, and the sources have not been named. There were 5 Republican sources who spoke to the reporter here and essentially indicated that Trump feels empowered now, that certain people have left. Gary Cohn has left. Of course, Hope Hicks has left. Some of the people who kind of keep him a little under control are either leaving or have already left. And so he feels as though maybe the best way to go about things is just get rid of everyone. Okay. So one of the sources who spoke to Vanity Fair was quoted as saying the following, that Donald Trump was speaking to him and said the following: I'm doing great, but I'm getting all these bad headlines. So I want to stop here for a second. But you're not doing great. And that's the thing, like he's just completely unaware. Like he lacks any and all self-awareness. He is unable to reflect accurately on his performance, on his life choices.
Right. I'm winning. Why does the scoreboard say otherwise?
It's exactly it. So, and by the way, that is part and parcel of the story and why he keeps changing staff. Because he keeps thinking, well, it can't be me. I'm a very stable genius, right? So it must be something else. It must be that the press is biased against me and they're fake news. And it must be but the schmucks around me who are screwing it up. Because the one thing I know for sure is that it's not me. Because he is obsessed with himself.
This is the character trait that millennials get stereotyped with on a regular basis. And it's just funny because here you have a man in his 70s. He's in his 70s, right?
Yeah, he's a dotard.
Okay.
He's a dotard.
Okay, but anyway, completely lacks self-awareness. But let's move forward.
Is that what they say about millennials? They lack self-awareness?
That they lack self-awareness and that they refuse to take, like they think so highly of themselves and refuse to take personal responsibility and all that. Because they've been given trophies their entire lives.
That's it.
Yeah.
So another source told Vanity Fair, Trump is frustrated by all these people telling him what to do. Yeah, it's almost as if we live in a country that's supposed to have checks and balances, but nonetheless. Trump is in command. He's been in the job more than a year now. He knows how the levers of power work. He just doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. So, all right, goes on. Trump is red hot about Kelly trying to control him. So it seems as though Kelly might be one of the first to go. Trump is going for a clean reset, but he needs to do it in a way that's systemic so it doesn't look like it's chaos.
No, it won't look that way at all.
Yeah, what setting are we on now?
That's my question. It's like he's like I'm gonna avoid chaos. I feel like that's been the default setting.
Yeah, that's too late. Okay, but no, as he told us in a tweet a couple of days ago, it's not chaos. It's high energy. That's the setting we're on, high energy. So I think that he's actually partly right. So let me give a couple of pieces of context here. First of all, in all these stories, of course, I'm not in the camp of mainstream media's fake news. I'm in the camp of, hey, trust but verify, and they have their establishment bias and all that stuff. So when they just say, hey, we have sources inside the White House, I love to see if it pans out and it's true or not true. And in this case, they have 5 Republican officials. That's a lot, 5, right? And has Gabriel Sherman done a pretty good job of being accurate on earlier stories? And the answer is yes. So this is likely to be true, okay? And with Trump, he might have told those 5 Republicans that, and then changes his mind tomorrow. So you never know in that sense. But for the moment being, I think this appears to be true. And in the part that Trump is right about is, of course his chief of staff, John Kelly, is trying to control him for 2 reasons. One, he's the chief of staff, so he sets your schedule. So if you get confused because you're a child, like, oh, dude, I can't believe Kelly's trying to set my schedule. That's his job. That's his job to do that, right? And control what goes into the White House and what doesn't go into the White House. So you need someone to do that job. But since that's a nice Freudian slip. Since Trump has such low IQ, he doesn't understand that simple concept. But there is a second part to it, which is also true. That John Kelly, because he's a normal, rational human being, not because he's particularly smart or certainly not correct, but overall, since he's a normal person, he thinks this guy is an unbelievable moron. So I've got to try to just nudge him in the right direction. Otherwise, we're going to go from high energy to high chaos nonstop,
right?
Nonstop, right?
And the reason that Kelly's there is because his predecessor, Reince Priebus, just kind of let anyone walk in whenever. It is a direct response to a previous chaos that still seems to yield the perception of chaos itself. I don't see how maybe going back to it, he feels like now that he's familiar with how it works, he can manage things, but I don't see any evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the captain of the Titanic would have just fired the staff a little sooner and all together, I think people would have been a lot calmer.
Yeah.
As it went down.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But the only thing I don't have any affection for any of those people he's firing. The only thing that worries me is that John Bolton is going to maybe make his way
great point.
back into, and then we're right back in. Then that guy's a maniac. That's
And Trump's been lunching with him.
It's so bad.
So it seems like he's shopping around for some replacements, and Bolton might be consideration or is a consideration. But one thing that I do want to point out, though, look, the sources of course are not named, but I am curious about where these Republican sources fall on the issue of these tariffs, because Trump is getting a lot of heat from some establishment Republicans who don't like the tariffs. So I'm not saying that, I wouldn't believe any Republican who is against the tariffs saying these things, but, I have a feeling that some want him out. And
No, so Anna, your instinct to check the motivations of the sources is perfect, and I wish that more journalists would do that instead of going, oh, a source says it must be true, I'm writing it down, right? Mm-hmm. The flip side to that is John Kelly in this case is against the tariffs.
Right, that's true.
And so most of the establishment is with John Kelly, and hence they wouldn't want to undermine him. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other Republicans, to your point, Anna, mm-hmm. that are for the tariffs and would love to undermine John Kelly. And so you always have to keep that in mind as to where people are coming from. I'll tell you this, if he gets rid of John Kelly and McMaster, who's the other guy that the National Security Advisor he's trying to get rid of, those are the first 2 up. Anna's got a great twist for you guys on who's next after that. But if those 2 go, and McMaster's already basically gone, they've pre-announced it, this whole idea of Trump is, I got this, man. I've been here a year. I've got this figured out. It's never been high energy. It's always been chaos. It's going to go from chaos to insanity. And it's going to devolve way quicker. And he's going to make horrible decisions completely unchecked, let alone, again, the last layer of the story will be who's coming in to replace them. part of that is just one quick note on what Jimmy said. They're thinking of Bolton in one of those positions. That guy's a neocon, loves war, like might be literally the #1 warmonger in the country. So if he comes in, batten down the hatches for the pandemonium that might break out. And by the way, I'd like to thank Tucker Carlson for doing the country a little bit of a favor, a sentence I never thought I'd say. But earlier in the week, I thought about covering this story, didn't, but I wish I had because now I know how important that little interview was. Tucker Carlson did an interview with John Bolton and kind of embarrassed him publicly about how he was wrong about the Iraq war.
Yeah.
And Bolton was furious. And there was like this wonderful, awkward moment on Fox News. And I now realize, based on this reporting, Bolton's auditioning for the position by going on Fox News when Tucker Carlson torpedoes him on the issue of the Iraq war, which Trump kept saying was a bad idea during the campaign. Man, he put a hurting on Bolton there. That's why Bolton was so mad.
Yeah.
So
was
I hope
Tucker
that worked.
Carlson right about the Iraq war?
Look, Tucker Carlson, I don't remember the whole history of if he fell in with the Pat Buchanan crowd, but I think he might have. Either way, even if he's faking it today, I'll still take it because the last guy in the world I want in that White House is John Bolton.
You know, I just never know with Tucker Carlson because I can't tell if he honestly believes all these. I've been talking to Haas about this as he writes his pieces in the morning, but like, I can't tell if Tucker Carlson earnestly believes all the things he's saying, or if he was just so petrified by the feeling of losing his job once after being publicly embarrassed in the wake of the Crossfire Jon Stewart era when he was kind of flailing in nowhere, and now he's back at the plate. He's grateful to have dinner every night, and so he's just giving all of these lines, and then moments like this come up where Tucker just says, like, you know what? For 6 minutes, I'm just gonna win an argument on my terms, and that's it. No, I don't know.
I just think he puts his finger in the wind, and it's blowing right now. The base that are non-interventionists, right? And Trump won by insulting Jeb Bush over the Iraq war. So, and everybody, including Krauthammer, said that's a big mistake to do that. It wasn't a mistake. Everybody hated the Iraq war, right? And they hated that we got lied to about it. Even the people who were for it hated that we got lied to about it. So I think that's what Tucker Carlson is doing. He knows that the people watching, they're on his side, or he just takes the side of the audience.
Right.
All right, so according to Vanity Fair, next on the departure list are Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump.
Damn, drums.
Yeah. So, look, and again, part of the problem and part of the reason is because of security clearance issues, and Trump just doesn't like the negative headlines and doesn't want to attribute those negative headlines to his own behavior, but rather the people around him. But he's still super loyal to his family. So according to these sources, he's trying to find a way to get rid of them where they're not going to be embarrassed and they would agree to it. So for instance, one scenario being discussed is that Kushner would return to New York to oversee Trump's 2020 re-election campaign with his ally, Brad Parscale. Also, Ivanka is likely to stay on longer, perhaps through the summer, before decamping home to New York to enroll her children in a Manhattan private school.
Man, private school. Who would have thought they'd go to private school?
She's been fighting very aggressively for women's rights, though. She's gotten a lot done.
Yeah, very aggressive. I love how they described the Jared Kushner situation. They said he's wandering around the White House trying to find something to do because he doesn't have security clearance. So good. He's trying to save face by being like, no, well, yeah, listen, the coffee needed to be refilled. It did. Yeah, it did. I mean, somebody had to do it, right? And so they say that the campaign job might be, quote unquote, soft landing for Jared. Oh, I love that.
You just picture him like trying to use his key card to get in places. It's out. Oh, I must have demagnetized. Yeah, I must have had it too close to my credit cards. With the disappearance of this, to say that he's going to do a clean reset of his cabinet, NPR reported earlier this week that the percentage of high-level appointments and people in the White House, 43% of them are gone.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
Unbelievable.
We're almost halfway there.
Yeah, that's unprecedented.
So it's a clean reset. We've done like half a reset. Now we just need to fully unplug and plug it back in.
And remember, there are still positions that have gone unfilled, especially with, the Department of Homeland Security, positions that are important for the national security of the country. Trump hasn't made a lot of those appointments yet. And I mean, he's gonna have, I don't know, it is chaos. It is chaos. Like, he doesn't want to do the job. He just doesn't want to do the job. And right now, he's gonna have all these vacancies within his own cabinet. He hates Rex Tillerson too. I don't know when Rex Tillerson's gonna be gone.
The ExxonMobil deal is dead. Rex is, I said this earlier in the week, TikTok, he's gonna leave any minute now. Because he doesn't want to be there. He's like, I came here to lift the sanctions and get that $9 trillion deal with Exxon done. It's not happening. What the hell am I doing here? So I'd be shocked if he didn't leave soon. So who's going to replace these guys? So we talked about Bolton's one possibility, but he wants to bring back his old pals, David Bossie, and most importantly, Corey Lewandowski.
Oh, wow.
That's what it's like. Have you ever watched a show where like someone leaves to go like do their own spinoff and it fails miserably and they just like come back? Mm-hmm. It's like there was one episode of Seinfeld where like George quits and then regrets it, and the next day he just like shows up at work.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what's gonna happen. So there's 43% are gone. You won't be able to keep tabs on who's gone and returned. So
Lewandowski, Trump loves because Lewandowski does several things. One is, oh, boss, you're so right, boss. Oh, they had it coming, boss. Oh, I tell you, nobody's better than you, big boy. Oh, you got it, okay. And the other reason is, Lewandowski is as much of a jerk and a blowhard and almost as stupid as Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So they're like peas in a pod, and he misses his buddy Corey. They used to do all the silly things in the middle of the night when nobody was looking in the White House. They're like, what is that Will Ferrell movie, Step Brothers?
Step Brothers, activities. Yeah. They need to do some activities.
That's right.
I think that Trump will be the first. He's going to try to be the first president, if he gets reelected, to get divorced and remarried while he's president.
Well, first of all, he's getting divorced from his entire cabinet.
That's right. Right. His next step is watch this.
And it'll be Stormy Daniels, so it'll be an epic romance.
Well, when the ratings dip, you're going to have to juice it up somehow.
And that's what it is. Like with the Jared and Ivanka thing, like they always got flack, but it was like the right kind of flack. It's the kind of flack that Trump was comfortable getting. And of course, it's his family. But and once it transitions into the prohibitive kind of flack, then it's time to go. And that prohibitive flack has two forms. Something that is genuinely wrong and genuinely something that he doesn't want to be associated with. And the other one is something that takes focus away from him. And once that happens, he just jettisons them. And I'm sure I don't think Ivanka and Jared are going to want to stick around this much anymore. They got what they wanted, and then they're going to go back. Jared's going to go raise funds for a campaign. He'll go back to those same kind of rooms he was brought up in and get the same kind of, business dealings he was doing before.
Yep. All right. What's next, Anna?
All right. Lawmakers in the state of Tennessee have abandoned their plans to propose and pass legislation that would outlaw child marriages in their state. You heard that correctly. Child marriages occur not only in Tennessee, in the United States, but it's particularly bad in Tennessee. In fact, a recent investigation found that three 10-year-old girls had been married to men ages 24 to 31, and an 11-year-old boy who had been married to a 27-year-old woman. So understandably, lawmakers in the state realized that there was an issue here. Now, there are laws against child marriages, but there are all sorts of loopholes that people were taking advantage of. So, for instance, a judge could intervene and allow underage people to get married. Parents could get involved and say that they allow their 10-year-old daughter to marry a man who's in his 30s. And so they wanted to close these loopholes. But then another conservative organization gets involved and they stop it, because they were worried that this legislation, if it had passed into law, would do away with their efforts, or at least put their efforts to outlaw gay marriage in jeopardy. So in their view, gay marriage is much worse than 10-year-olds marrying people in their 30s. Let me give you more details. Now, in 2016, 42 men and 166 women under the age of 18 were married in the state. State law is riddled with loopholes that essentially allow minors of any age to marry. Now, two Democrats in the state legislature set out to close the loopholes and set 18 without exceptions and without loopholes as the required age for anyone to obtain a marriage license. And this is where things start to get pretty shady. So House Majority Leader Glenn Casada was convinced to send the bill to summer study in the House Civil Justice Subcommittee after an email from attorney David Fowler, a former state senator. Now, David Fowler is the individual who wants to outlaw same-sex marriage in the state of Tennessee. And he's the one who emailed the House Majority Leader in Tennessee, and convinced him, how about we push this bill into this summer study session, which essentially kills the bill.
It's like a gap year.
Right.
It takes a year to go find itself, you know?
Yeah, so because of Wolfpack, I know all about how they kill bills. And the number one way is, we will consider it later, which means we're done with it. We're not considering it. So summer study means we kill the bill, it's done.
Exactly. So what is Fowler's reasoning? What is his legal theory behind killing this bill? And why would that bill negatively impact his efforts to outlaw same-sex marriage? Fowler's email said he is preparing a lawsuit to counter the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to legalize same-sex marriage. He's arguing that the Supreme Court's ruling essentially nullified all Tennessee marriage licenses when it opened the spectrum of legal marriage beyond just between a man and a woman. He says that if Tennessee were to ban child marriages by modifying state marriage law, lawmakers would be acknowledging the existence of same-sex marriage. If the legislature were to update its marriage laws, it would thereby acknowledge the validity of those marriage laws in, the post-gay marriage legalization era, right? Fowler's theory is that the legislature would never pass a marriage law if it required the recognition of same-sex couples' marriages would fall apart. If it required the recognition of same-sex couples' marriages would fall apart. So, look, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not privy to the laws, and so I feel uncomfortable commenting on that, like whether or not that legal theory is accurate. But what I will say, and this is something that is known, is that they genuinely think same-sex marriage is worse than kids getting pressured and forced into marriage, which is what's happening here. 10-year-old girls do not have the ability to consent to marrying some 31-year-old dude.
Listen, some people believe in their heart of hearts and through some of their religious convictions that marriage is simply the union of one man and one child.
Yeah, and by the way, though, that is literal, and it is. There's a lot of examples in the Bible, so they're not that far off, which gets me to my point that some might consider controversial. Yeah, they care more about the issue of gay rights and taking away gay rights, and that's a good way of framing it, Anna. But I actually think that they don't mind child marriage. They think it's part of their culture. So that is a conservative thing. Now, it doesn't. I don't want anybody to get me wrong. I'm not saying every conservative in the country and a conservative from California thinks, oh, it's awesome for 10-year-olds to get married to 30-year-olds. No, but I'm saying there are some people in Tennessee, Kentucky, where this is being discussed, both states, that got married when they were 13, that had a tradition and a culture of getting married really, really young, and that was one that was intertwined with their religious views in the world. So I think they just flat out don't want to get rid of the law.
What is one of the common smears that we heard from the right wing when it came to the prohibition of same-sex marriage? What was a common smear that gay people had to deal with?
Oh, that they were going to go after the kids. That
they were going to be pedophiles, that they're disgusting. No, you're the pedophiles. You guys are the ones who are supporting the marriage of a 10-year-old to a 31-year-old. It's disgusting. They're the real pedophiles. Another classic case of projection.
And look, it's not an accident and not just political that there was a lot of people in Alabama that defended Roy Moore. And if you remember some of the defenses that we quoted from Republican officials in the state of Alabama, it was a lot of, what's the big deal? And they're like, what, you didn't do that, right? And so, again, not all conservatives, and I don't say that because I'm politically correct, I'll call all conservatives all sorts of names, right? But there is some subset of conservatives, especially in that region of the country, who thinks, what's the big deal? And if I want that should be part of my privilege. And Anna, you're right, I hadn't thought about it that way. And then what do? They say, gay people are interested in young kids.
So here's the thing about statutory rape. means that someone under 16 can't give consent. So if you're married to someone who's 10 years old, that's by just like definition of law rape, right? So that's why I don't understand.
It's not that they can't give consent, the parents give consent. So
but you can't give consent for your kid to have sex.
You can give consent for your kid to enter into marriage, and that is the law in a lot of these places.
But I thought that was after you were of age of the consent for sex, but too young for marriage.
No, that's the insane part here. Jimmy is, in essence, right. Eileen Rechenwald, the executive director for the Kentucky Association of Sexual Assault Programs, because Kentucky was also considering a bill to end the loopholes to end child marriage in Kentucky, and it also got held up by right-wing interests. They claim for other reasons. We can get into that in a second. I don't believe them. Anyway, Eileen Rechenwald, who wants to combat this, said, quote, "This is legalized rape of children." Because in those cases, if you're a 31-year-old guy and you slept with a 10-year-old in the state of Tennessee, you would go to prison for probably decades, as you should. But if you're a 31-year-old who got the permission of her parents to marry her and then had sex with her, that would be perfectly legal.
It's insane.
And by the way, not like that's the law today in Tennessee.
And they again killed the bill that would do away with the loopholes to protect these kids. You know?
Some of them are 3-day waiting periods before having a wedding. You've planned a wedding. I planned a wedding. 3 days? Are you kidding me? We need to get these children married now before it stops being insert something disgusting there. Like what is the motivation to be like within 72 hours I might change my mind? We need to get this kid married now.
It's crazy. And by the way, if you look at the U.S. as a whole, because you're right, Brett, there are many other states who have certain loopholes like this on the books. Between 2000 and 2015, at least 207,468 minors were married in the United States.
87% are girls, 1/3 were 16 or under, 1% were under 15, 14% married other minors, sure, 85% married people who are 23 and younger. Just the youngest children to marry were 3 10-year-old girls in Tennessee in 2001 who were married to men ages 24, 25, and 31. This is all from a Frontline report. The youngest groom was an 11-year-old who married a 27-year-old. One of the oldest people to marry children was a 74-year-old in Alabama. His bride was 14.
What are you doing?
What did I tell you about Alabama conservatives who want to marry 14-year-olds? I didn't know that story, and there it is.
The state raised the age to 16 afterwards. So
and my point about culture. So in Kentucky, the right-wing group who's trying to defeat this similar legislation says, no, we're just looking out for parental rights. You know, in case the parent wants to. Anyway, so and they have a whole bunch of excuses. I don't believe them. I think that the conservative idea is, come on, you liberals are even trying to change this. Okay, you could prove me otherwise, by the way, by actually getting it passed in these states and ending what is in essence, as Jimmy pointed out and the experts point out, legalized child rape, okay? But they're not doing it, and they're fighting it. And in that Kentucky case, one of the women who is spearheading the process was married off when she was 16 to a predator who had molested her at the age of 14 and continued to molest her, and her parents pressured her to marry him. By the way, this is something that happens sometimes I've used this example often, in Central Asia. There's the nomadic cultures that go and they used to kidnap women, and because they were nomads and they do raids, and they still have that tradition. Some, not all, but some of them still kidnap women, rape them, and then the woman's parents come over and say, don't cause us embarrassment, and so just marry your rapist, okay? And we go, oh my God, look at these Central Asian guys, look at these Muslim fundamentalists, look at these guys, that guys. Meanwhile, right here in Tennessee and Kentucky, you know what happened in that case in Kentucky? The woman who'd been abused since the age of 14, her mom came over and convinced her to marry her molester. And one of her reasons was, what's the big deal? I got married at 13.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Because there is a certain subset of culture there that is used to that kind of being marriage, partly because, hey, when you hit puberty, the Bible instructs us it's time for you to have kids, and you can't have it outside of marriage, so up and at 'em.
So this is what they mean when they talk about sanctity of marriage.
Yeah, partly.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. Let's do that. And when we come back, what Congress is doing to make sure that everyone in the country, including government workers, can discriminate against you if they don't like your lifestyle.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join. And you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad-free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk, Jimmy, Brett, and Anna with you guys. We have one more story, but I'm going to try to read as many YouTube super chats as I can because those help the show. Jessica May writes in, I believe porn is covered under the First Amendment, but I don't want children accessing it. Is that infringing on their First Amendment rights? Nope.
Good point.
Great point, Jessica. Dustin Wilson, I wonder how fast those child marriage laws would change if a Muslim in the state attempted just a thought experiment. Yeah, if you had an imam saying, oh, now I would like to marry a 10-year-old. Sharia law.
By the way, I no one addressed it, but I love the point that you made about how in red states people tend to get married a lot younger because they want to have sex and they want to not feel guilty about it. So they end up marrying the first schmuck that they get into a relationship with, and then they're
and that's for the older ages, meaning like 18, 19, etc.
Right.
Yeah, but
didn't Jerry Lee Lewis marry his 13-year-old cousin?
Is it 13? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Winona Ryder, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Look, this is not. It used to happen all the time, especially in the South. That's just a reality. Okay, so Food Bucket Jesus also on YouTube Super Chat says, "Child bride is just another way to spell slavery." # Southern values, # family values.
Right.
All right, and one quick tweet for you guys. Other Russert says, strangely, Jimmy Dore and I are wearing the same underwear today. # ask me how I know.
How do you know?
I don't know.
I don't even know what underwear I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Apparently the other Russert does. All right.
Bad underwear today.
I'm just, me, I just wear a jock. No.
Let's not get back into who was your sponsor, the ball?
Oh, yeah, the sweaty balls.
Oh,
thing.
that's right.
Yeah,
I do wear that still, even though I don't mention their name because they're not paying me, so I don't mention them.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We did not come to a deal.
You
Overheard on TYT today. Oh, the sweaty balls thing.
And then followed by, we couldn't come to a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying anything. All right, last story for you guys in this hour.
We've recently learned that Donald Trump does plan to meet with Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea. And we have a few more details about that meeting, although at the moment we don't know exactly when it'll take place or where it'll take place. Now, South Korean envoys announced that Kim told them he was willing to begin negotiations with the United States on abandoning nuclear weapons and that he was to suspend all nuclear and missile tests while engaged in talks. Now, Sarah Huckabee Sanders says that Trump will accept the invitation to meet with Kim Jong-un at a place and time to be determined. She also had this to say. Take a look.
This maximum pressure campaign and this process has been ongoing since the president first took office. For the first time in a long time, the United States is actually having conversations from a position of strength, not a position of weakness like the one that North Korea finds itself in due to the maximum pressure campaign. Look, what we know is that the maximum pressure campaign has clearly been effective. We know that it has put a tremendous amount of pressure on North Korea. The maximum pressure campaign, we're not letting up. We're not going to step back or make any changes to that.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
So the reason why she keeps talking about the maximum pressure campaign and how Trump is going at it from a place of strength is because we know that the right wing typically argues that you should never have conversations with dictators or terrorists. You shouldn't negotiate with them. And it seems as though Trump is entering diplomatic talks, and so they're kind of having to, cover up for some of the statements that they had previously made. Now, a senior administrative official said the following: at this point, we're not even talking about negotiations. What we're talking about is an invitation by the leader of North Korea to meet face to face with the president of the United States. And there are, understandably, some people who are skeptical about this, considering what has happened historically with North Korea. Now, to be clear, Trump is the first sitting president who's agreed to meet with the North Korean dictator. In the past, former presidents have done so. And in the past, North Korea has made promises that they have reneged on. So, for instance, the 1994 armed framework got North Korea to freeze its plutonium production for a time, but eventually fell apart during George Bush's administration after the U.S. intelligence discovered that North Korea was secretly pursuing technology for a uranium enrichment program. And so another fear that I'm hearing, and I myself have, is that Trump's an idiot. So I
was not expecting that.
I know, that was so smoothly delivered.
So I think that, diplomatic talks are much better than acting like a juvenile on Twitter. However, I am a little concerned that Trump will somehow get tricked or baited into something that could be disastrous.
Okay, I've got to add Lindsey Graham's quote to that because I thought this was the funniest thing. And I'm going to agree with Trump in a second, so that'll be fun. But Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, says, a word of warning to North Korean President Kim Jong-un. The worst possible thing you can do is to meet with President Trump in person and try to play him.
Jesus, you got to say it like him.
Yeah.
Don't try to play him.
Right.
He's going to mess you up real good.
If you do that, it will be the end of you and your regime.
Can you talk like that all the
time? Okay. In other words, the South Carolina senator thinks the president's an idiot and he's going to get played.
No.
So, and he's telling this actually really young leader of North Korea, who we have no reason to believe is anything but an idiot, hey, listen, there's no way you're going to out-stupid our guy. So don't try to play him, okay? The rest of us are watching.
No, I have a different read on it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that Lindsey Graham and also Cory Gardner, who's also a senator, are setting the stage for potential war.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
no,
they're pushing for
we're both right.
Yeah. So, and the reason why I think they're pushing for it is because get a load of Cory Gardner's quote. He says the following: if the result of this meeting is not verifiable, concrete. If the result of this meeting is not verifiable concrete steps to denuclearization, it will be a failure. And the president is going to be under tremendous pressure because the new red line has been set to act. And he follows that up with, if a meeting with the president of the United States doesn't achieve this result, what is left to diplomacy?
So let me just say a couple of really important things here. First of all, I can't stand when both establishment politicians and establishment media talk about red lines. Shut the hell up about red lines. All it does is push us further towards war. But they both like revel in it. Like, a red line, it's got to be a red line. If we don't get everything we want out of these negotiations, it's a red line. We got to go to war. We got to go to war. Oh, they crossed the red line. Shut up.
So stupid.
Right? And Lindsey Graham has in the past said, who cares about the Koreans? Not just North Koreans. He said a life in America is worth so much more than South Korean lives. So in other words, if we go to war and like millions of South Koreans die, who cares? They're not Americans. We don't value their lives, even though South Korea is one of our top allies. So yes, Anna, they are bloodthirsty warmongers. But also, the only other reason to say don't play him is because you think Trump's an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? He would have never said that about Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, in his mind, wouldn't get played, right? Nobody had to warn people not to play Obama because they know he's smart, right? So it's both things are true. Now, so why do I agree with Trump? Look, am I naive? Do I not realize that this is partly deflection on his part? Of course it is. He's got a world of trouble here. The Mueller investigation, Stormy Daniels, the chaos in the White House, everybody's leaving, panic after panic. So he comes out and makes a bold statement, and everybody's like, oh, squirrel, right? Okay. So I know that that's part of the strategy here, but nonetheless, we should talk to our enemies because talking to your friends doesn't do you any good, right? You're already friends. In order to have peace, you must talk to your enemies, even if they are terrible people, like the leaders of North Korea. They have concentration camps for their people. We're not unaware of that. Even if they're perpetual liars, but on that front, you'll never outlie our guy, okay? Right. And for all the times they reneged, I'm not unaware of that. I'm perfectly aware of that. But nonetheless, talking is better than not talking. This idiotic conservative idea of, no, me no talk to enemy, me write about everything, me draw a red line. No. So if Trump's going to go talk to them, I don't care for what reason, God bless, go forward. Who knows? Maybe the two idiots will get in a room and hey, we're just like each other. And maybe they'll get a peace deal. It's unlikely, but it's better than not trying.
Can I say two things? The first thing is that North Korea, it was interesting when they agreed to that framework before to freeze its plutonium production, but then it fell apart during the George Bush administration because the George Bush intelligence community said that they found out they were cheating. Now, I don't know if there's ever been an intelligence failure during the Bush administration, but I'm guessing maybe that was one. So the number two thing is North Korea has wanted to end their nuclear program for a while. They've offered to end their nuclear program, and we keep turning them down. The last one, Barack Obama turned them down, and their demand was, hey, could you quit doing war games with B-1 bombers off our coast? I really appreciate it. And Barack Obama said, go pound sand. We're not going to stop doing that. And so they were like, okay, well, we see what you did in Libya. We see what you did in Iraq, and we're going to try to keep getting our nuclear weapon. And so that's what's been going on, and I think it's a really good chance that Trump actually does pull this off and get them to agree to dismantle their nuclear, because they've been wanting to for a while.
So, one, I want to know how Trump's going to respond when he finds out that talking to your enemies was Obama's idea. Because that was what Obama said with Iran. What he wanted to do is open up diplomatic relations with your enemy. That's Obama's idea. I hate to break it to you. Also, typically what happens, the reason that sitting presidents haven't ever met with the leader of North Korea, Clinton was about to at the end of his term, but the North Korean leader backed out of a promise and found out that he backed out of it. And so the idea was that meeting with the president of the United States is a way for North Korean leaders to elevate their image, to be able to see the two next to each other. The difference is in previous situations, the president of the United States hasn't viewed a meeting with a North Korean leader as a way to elevate his own image.
Oh, that's a great point.
And that's what Trump is doing. He sees this as a way to do something that no one else has done without questioning why no one else has done it. And I will say this, the fundamental dynamic of North Korean sanctions is we levy sanctions against them. They have either some act of contrition. We go back to the negotiating table, not sending the sitting president, but we send a former one or some diplomat, and then we ease sanctions. And then once the food runs out, the North Koreans start rattling their sabers, and then we reveal that there's some other way they've enriched plutonium, and then we get mad again, and then we levy more sanctions, and it just goes in circles. And the only difference is who we sent and what we said to them. And in this situation, Trump thinks he's going to make some grand new breakthrough, when in reality, this is just the part where we send some diplomat to talk to the head of North Korea. And the final thing I'll say is it's very possible to me that all of the escalation that we saw recently in terms of developing nuclear weapons was just so the North Koreans could participate in the freaking Olympics. These guys thought it was so awesome that, Dennis Rodman came to visit. They use their nuclear arsenal as a bargaining chip to gain credibility, not abroad, but at home. So they can say that they went and did what they could do and they keep everything in line. It's very tenuous, but I think that, who knows, but to be able to show that picture to everyone and not have to Photoshop it anymore when they put it on whatever closed circuit television they run 24/7 there.
And they've used, terroristic threats as a bargaining chip for previous Olympics.
It's the guy with the grenade in a movie being like, ooh.
Yeah.
I understand all that. And look, guys, so we want to criticize Trump. It's super easy. And on this one, for example, he said when they asked him, is this for negotiations? Because his White House is saying it's not negotiations, because if it's considered negotiations and they don't achieve any results, it'll seem like a failure. But Trump's an idiot, doesn't know that. So when they ask him if it's negotiations, he says, quote, it's almost beyond that. Oh, no, don't do that, right?
You have
and then he says, if the negotiations go well, quote, hopefully you will give me credit.
Okay,
now having said that, guys, the part I don't agree with, and I want to be clear about this, is so they want credibility. Okay, but we're playing nonsense games. Whether we give them credibility or not, they control North Korea, period. It's like Hamas, I will not recognize Israel. Okay, but it still exists. It's right there, right? So it's such a stupid diplomatic game. And I love diplomacy. I believe in diplomacy. That's why I think Trump should go. But these things where they're like, no, technically we will not recognize you, and you want credibility. But they already have North Korea.
Yeah.
They already have it. So we might as well at least negotiate and try to do something with it.
There's an element of also, we just told South Korea to go F itself when it came to steel. And the current president of South Korea ran on a platform of de-escalating tension with North Korea and won. And so that is maybe a bargaining chip. I do think that the thing that takes priority is Trump trying to be the first one to do something.
And he wants to reinforce the notion that he's a great negotiator, something that obviously we're very skeptical about.
You just have to be able to offer some better setup to North Korea than the fact that they can shoot off a missile and everyone's afraid to die.
Yeah.
Good luck.
By the way, how did they get Trump to agree to the meeting? The South Korean National Security Office head
has porn stars.
No, but he said to him. He said, we have to thank Trump for his leadership and maximum pressure policy. And together with international solidarity, it brought the parties to the verge of talks. In other words, he was like, Donald Trump, you are so good with your maximum pressure policy. Trump's like, yes. Okay, what do you need me to do? And yes, they want to ease the steel tariffs. He's like, we can talk about that. How big are my hands? They're big, aren't they? Right? And you want me to do talks with the North Koreans? Done. But nonetheless, it is the right thing to do. Okay. All right. I think. All right.
But, well, isn't it? So the reason also, I think, why South Korea says that is because it gives him cover to go do the deal, which is why it took Nixon to go to China, right? Because you can't have a lefty going talking with the commies. He's a commie himself. So that's why. So that's why.
Yeah. But who's North Korea? Their biggest role boy is China. Their only role boy is China. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you have to watch out for that.
All right, we gotta go. All right, Brett, Jimmy, thank you. Jimmy, you got any shows coming up?
Oh, I sure do. March 26th, we just added a show in Austin, Texas, and we're at March 30th in Burbank, California. So live shows, go to jimmydorcomedy.com. Thanks, Cenk.
All right, no problem. And another power panel and more great stories for you guys, including, ladies and gentlemen, we got Farmer Bro and how much how much of a jail sentence did he get? We'll tell you when we come back. Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.